Alright, my mic should be working. The music kind of making me go insane. What's up, everybody? It's Foxy. Welcome to Young Lions episode number 4, I think? We've been doing these so sporadically on and off that I can't tell which episode we're on anymore. Welcome to Young Lions. It's definitely not 4. Thank you for everybody who came out in chat. This is Young Lions. We're going to be talking about mix-ups today, because I know that is something that a lot of you new players want to learn. Let me get a little bit of good music going. Where's the song? Of course, TFH music only, as per Fightin Fanatic standards. Give me 1 second. My poor computer cannot handle all of this data. It's barely holding itself together to stream right now. And there we go. Alrighty. So, hello everybody, welcome to the Young Lions episode on Mixups. I am your host, Southern Foxy, or just Foxy for those of you who do know me. There's a lot for us to be talking about today, because mix-ups are a rather broad topic. I was not prepared for how much I would be covering in this episode, but such is life sometimes. I think I love how y'all are having just like a big discussion on the music of this game, when we all know that training stage is the best thing ever. But, moving on to our topic for today, mix-ups. I'm pretty sure you guys have all had some experience with these in your time of playing TFH, whether you're new, whether you're old. But for those of you who are just like, I've never played this game before, I really want to get into this game. What's a mix-up? Anybody can answer this question. This question normally has a lot of different answers, a bunch of different definitions, but most of them boil down to the concept of mix-ups are situations where multiple things can happen. So if we look at this, hey Wishy-Washy, and hello Vivian. It's nice to see you guys. And 5. Alright, so we're going to set for Oleander to block. Blocking always. So no matter what we do, they block everything. And my FPS is dying, but I do this for you guys. Alright, so as most of you guys who have at least a little bit of knowledge in fighting games know, usually when your opponent is on the ground, you want to block most of their moves crouching, because usually most of the moves that they're going to be doing on the ground are confined to either mids or lows. So you do the good boy thing. Time for education. Hi there, Rotorix. So you do the good boy thing. You do the thing you've always been taught to do. So here we have MPK's stupid face crouching on the ground for us, as you guys can see. We hit them with all of our moves, 5A, 2A, mids, lows, 5B, 2B, mids, lows, and they're blocking everything. But we have an answer for that. You know what that's called? 6B. Oh, wait, that wasn't how it was supposed to go. Hold up. Okay, there we go. He blocked. Alright. 6B, boys! That's the... Shoutouts to NPK Stupid Fan. Beating Foxy even in trade mode. So look. Are you only blocking low? You're supposed to be blocking everything low. Alright. So they're blocking everything that they... Get blocked out reaction, total fail. So they're blocking everything that they need to be blocking. They're blocking low, they're blocking our mids, and they're blocking all of our lows. But then, we have the secret. 6B. And then they're opened up. And then they eat a level 2 combo. And you know what that was? That was a mix-up. Now, here's what happens. You take another situation. You get hit by the 6B and you're like, alright, we're not gonna get hit by the 6B anymore. So, we start hitting them with all of our start hitting them with all of our mid attacks, you know, like our 5As and our 5Bs and our 5Cs, and then we hit them with 6B and they block it, and then we're eating a punish, and then we're losing like 20% of our health, and then, you know, we find ourselves back in the situation where they have to block, and so now we throw a low in there, and boom, you were mixed up. You got hit. You were mixed up. My pressure turned into a mix-up. Mix-ups are situations in which your opponent can do multiple things. We also usually call this a 50-50 because it can go this way or it can go that way. It can be one thing or it can be the other. I can 5B into 6B and hit you with an overhead, or I can 5B into 2B and hit you with the low. So, the answer to our question, what is a mix-up, has finally been discovered. Let me look at my handy notes out here. Now, mix-ups come in all different flavors, all different shapes, all different sizes. There are multiple different mix-ups. As we saw, we can 5B into 6B, which is the high, or we can 5B into 2B, which is a low. This is the age-old high-low mix-up, but there are even more types. What if you'll stop blocking, thanks. Stop that. Now, let me introduce you into another kind of mix-up that we call the left-right mix-up, otherwise known as the cross-up same-side mix-up. This is something that a couple of you might have been hit by, but don't worry, because your boy Foxy's here to explain. So, in fighting games, as most people know, unless you're playing Mortal Kombat, you're usually holding back to block. The which side special, yes. You're usually holding back to block. So, if I were on Oleander's left, she would be holding right to be able to block things. But, now let's say I hop over to the other side of her. If she's still holding right, she's holding towards me, meaning she's about to catch a foot to the face. So, whenever I switch over to her opposite side, she needs to be holding left to block now. This mechanic has been exploited time and time again for what we call the left-right mix-up. So, I run up and I jump to Oleander. That's not the jump. And boom, it hit her in the face. Let me, because this will better explain if I knew how to operate this thing. Alright, so we're Oleander and we're holding back, we're moving backwards. Moving backwards is blocking. So we're moving backwards, we're holding back to block. So she's moving backwards, she's blocking. Okay, this example's not working. But you get my point. If we smack them in the face on the same side and they hold back to block, yes, it works. But now, what if we cross over them to their other side? And we hold the button a little bit later. Do 5C into crossover, 5D into crossover JC. That would work a little bit. If my frames would want to keep up with this, that'd be lovely. You know what? This is an even better setup for it. Wow, I am garbage at this game. See? Boom. Them's lagging hers, man. My computer can't handle this. I can only do that after a run jump. Yes. See? We end up on their opposite side. And once we start to hit them on their opposite side, if they're not holding back anymore, they're holding forward. So then it becomes a game of, are they going to hit me on the left side or are they going to hit me on the right side? That, my friends, is our left-right mix-up. I'm sorry for the horrible example. My computer can only handle so much. Also, stream chat is not up for some strange reason. There we go. I can only do that after a run jump. So the weird little thing about these cross-ups, normally, under normal circumstances, you only have to worry about them if your opponent is jumping. Because the way these work with collision boxes and I think it's sprite point position. So you've seen hitboxes, you've seen the green boxes and the red boxes, the hit boxes and the hurt boxes. Collision boxes are pretty important when it comes to left-right mix-ups, because the moment your blue box meets their blue box, you're pushing up against them. Two blue boxes can't exist in the same space. Hi, Keat. Yeah, this is your stupid face. I'm pushing up against your stupid face. Once these two blue boxes are pushed up against each other, the opponent starts to move back. But with jumping attacks, once you notice, your blue box becomes a little bit smaller, and it allows you to pass over them. And it allows you to hit them with the left-right. Now, one thing you might see is these green dots at the bottom of our feet. There's one near Oleander's hoof and one near Arizona's hoof. Once these green dots go past one another, you're considered behind the opponent. They'll start their little turnaround animation and you're officially considered behind them. If you hit them the moment that little green diamond passes them, you've crossed them up. And they need to block accordingly. That is the science behind the left-right mix-up. Now on to the final type of mix-up, which is honestly not the final type of mix-up. You're about to start getting schmixed in a bunch of different ways. This is what we call the strike throw mix-up. This is a lot more popular when opponent is knocked down and they're getting back up. But what is the normal thing? What is the number one thing that a lot of experienced players are going to tell you to start doing when you get up? You're going to want to block. Because a lot of people are going to start putting pressure on that wake up. Let me turn off these. You're going to want to block. Because if you don't want to eat a foot... If I time my meaty right... Oh my god. If you don't want to eat a foot to the face, you're going to want to block. And that's what you're going to want to be doing for a lot of things. Because people are going to start hitting you with stuff the moment you get back up. They're going to hit you with lows to try to open you up. They're going to start hitting you with highs to open you up. They're going to start short hop-seeing and hitting you with a bunch of obscene things. But when they've got you to the point where you start blocking on get up, they'll mix this in. Well, if I throw properly. You'll mix in a throw. And of course, you can't block a throw. This is what we call the strike throw mix-up. Perfect solution to that? Tech the throw. So we've gone over 3 of the major flavors of mix-up. But there's one more thing that I want to mention. It's very, very infamous upon players who've gotten mixed up, but extremely important that I go over. So, if the game would stop lagging on me, I would love to be able to show this. I might have to close out of something. I think I know what it is that I need to close out of. Alright, give me one moment. This is what I get for not being prepared for a stream. I thought I was prepared enough. The answer is OBS. It probably is. But for the sake of our sanity, we're gonna push on through. Alright. So, one of the things that you'll often see, higher mid-level players doing is you're stuck in the middle of a combo, right? But out of nowhere, they stop their combo. And once you see that combo counter reset, that means they stopped their combo. And then they started it again before you even realized what hit you. This is what we like to call a reset. It's a little bit of an extension of a strike or no strike mix-up. It all just comes down to being aware of when they stop their combo. Because if you're aware, wow, the frames. Oh, wow, okay. Hit stem recovery, yes. Okay, yeah, that's slow. But if they're aware of when the reset is going to happen, they'll just backdash out of it. Like it was absolutely nothing. Being aware of resets and when they're going to come is a strong part of not letting your opponent keep their offense up. There'll probably be another episode on resets in the future. I just want to keep it extremely basic for you guys because there's a lot that we can go into in depth on all of these points. Now onto a few common examples of mix-ups that you'll see. I already went over the jumping mix-up, but there was one more. There's another important aspect of jumps besides allowing for the left-right mix-up that you see so often. Whenever you jump, you are stuck with doing your air attacks. All you have is JA, JB, JC, and maybe a couple of aerial specials. But no matter what, all of these moves are going to hit high. So if you're any type of opponent, your option is probably going to be to anti-air. So let's say we're Keith's stupid face, and we want to do what Keats and all those other dumb Oleander players do. We want to jump in and we want to smite. Because that's all we do. We just smite. We're the horn boys, man. But we can anti-air that. So, you got to do something else. You got to think of something else. You can't keep jumping in and trying to smite and getting anti-air. So, when they think that we're ready to anti-air the moment they jump, they do something like this. They jump in, and then they hit us with the low the moment they land. And we're all ready to anti-air, we're all ready to block high, and then they take our toes. They take our hooks. Either that, or they could jump in and grab us. Nah. What's happening to me? I'm getting mixed. My shoelaces, they've been tied over and over again. It looks like they've been tied from my mom the time I was 8 years old. How can this happen? Another common example that we see of mix-ups are delayed buttons. And these are a little something similar to resets, except they are on your block. So if you're MPK, or if you're Bubble, or if you're a really good player who knows when those openings and block strings are going to come, and then you just smack a button. There we go. So you know when those openings in block strings are going to come. Blocking always. Block type all. So we do A, B, C, 2C, and then stomp. Oh wait, they weren't in hit stun, they were in block stun. We turn the hit one off. So once they're done blocking, they're going to hit us. That's it. We can't do too much against that. So 5A, 5B, 5C, and then they hit us. And because they're Oleander, they have a lot of room that they can hit us from. But if we're smart about the way we play these things, we'll delay our buttons. If we're expecting them to hit a button, we're going to delay our buttons. So boom, boom, and boom, we traded. They don't get that 5A. They don't get that combo. We've traded. So we're back at neutral. So I want to start my pressure again. Boom. 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 See that? She got hit. Delaying buttons is a very, very good mix-up against antsy and anxious players who want to hit their buttons and break out of situations extremely fast. Third example that I want to talk about is tick throws. This is something that you're going to see a lot, like over and over and over again. Especially amongst like higher level or mid-level players, they might hit you with a 5A. And usually when you see a 5A, you know that you're about to be put into a block string, and you know you want to start push blocking and getting away from that situation. So you do something antsy. But what comes immediately after? Boom. You've been thrown. Tick throws are a way to get your opponent into a blocking state of mind, and then hitting them with something that breaks their block. Boom. You've been mixed up. So, moving on to section 2 of this, even though we're already 25 minutes in, I'm taking way too long on these points, by the way. How can I mix my opponent up? How can I be offensive enough to mix my opponent up? And the number one answer you're going to get is you're going to be predictable. I mean, you're going to want to be unpredictable. So if you just walk up to your opponent and do nothing but 5v2v, and then they keep blocking the 5v2v, and then they keep blocking the 5v2v, and you don't do anything else, that's not a mix-up. You've gotten your pressure, you've gotten your advantage state, you've got them blocking, but you don't mix them up. You don't open them up. What are you doing with the advantage that you have? So, the option for that is the example that I showed earlier. You 5v6v. And even though, yes, they blocked it, you mixed it up. You put in something new. Now they don't know whether you're going to do 5v2v or 5v6v next time. Or, sometimes, you could 5v delay in the 5c. There are a bunch of different things that you can do here. Staying unpredictable means that they don't know what option they want to choose. Because every option has some sort of counter or some sort of escape. If they don't know what you're going to do, they're not going to choose the right escape. Sometimes, if you're in some sort of tournament environment, or if you're in the middle of playing a long set, sometimes you'll just put them into a situation where they can do whatever they want. Sometimes you'll just 5B, and then you'll stop moving. And then you'll block. And then you'll see, oh, they want to press buttons. I know what they want to do. That got them the win this time, so next time I'm going to delay my button. Now, of course, they blocked because it's MPK. He blocks everything. But you get the point. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. It's literally... That's literally what mixes them up. You do what they don't expect. Important note that I want to bring up is that there are levels of depth when it comes to these things. So at the beginning of games, or like at the beginning of your fighting game journey, you're going to learn the basic mix-up, of course, the classic high-low that I taught you earlier. That's like, you know, a level 1 mix-up. It's a simple thing that people do. But eventually you're going to start coming across players who block those mix-ups. And then they're going to start hitting you with more elaborate stuff. So let's take this for example. If I can find the blocking setting. So, boom. You've been put into a string, and then out of nowhere you get hit with a high. It was a reset and a high. You weren't expecting it. It was a mix-up on top of a mix-up. It's nothing that you're going to expect. Or, you can... If I'll short hop, thank you. Oh my god. Boom. You've been hit with a reset and a left-right. You got crossed up same side. You got hit with a mix-up on top of a mix-up. This is a level 2 mix-up. The levels are very subjective, depending on what kind of player you are, but the point is clear. The mix-up was more deep than, you know, just basic 5B into high or low. And then you've got stuff from, you know, level 3, where you empty jump at the opponent and then you run up and grab them. You hit them with a strike no mix-up, and then you hit them with a strike throw mix-up. You see how deeper this is getting when you break it down and pull it apart? The important thing that I want to bestow upon you is you don't want to try to go all in with like your deepest and bestest mix-ups. You want to keep it simple starting out at the beginning of the game, because you don't know what they're going to block. You don't know where your opponent's limit is. If you start out the game trying to do empty hop throw, and you forget the basic, like the basic things of fighting games, and you end up getting anti-aired on your way down, and now the opponent has advantage, then what was it all for? Now, if you run up, like if you jump at your opponent and then you hit them with the jump in, and then, you know, either they anti-air or they're blocking, and then they're blocking, and then you jump B into 5B, and then your basic mix-up, your 2B. Alright, they blocked it. Now you bring it up a little bit more. You take it to something harder. You take it to something higher. So, the summary of that is, don't go to level 3 without going to level 1 first. There's a basic escalation of these sort of things. Now, section 3 might be the question that most of you guys are asking. How do I defend myself from getting mixed up? We've all had our shoes tied for us. You know, we've all had our spaghetti scrambled. We've all had our eggs mixed, and we want to keep ourselves away from those situations. So, how do I defend myself from getting mixed up? First point I'd say is blocking appropriately. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, "Oh man, I don't have the reactions to save myself from laggy Arizona 60. It's impossible." And you know what? Sometimes it might be. Sometimes you might not have the reactions for that sort of thing. But not all of it comes down to reactions. A lot of it comes down to knowing what you need to focus on. So if you're caught in the middle of a block string, this is a point that I'm going to explore a little bit later on in the stream. But just for now, knowing what you need to block is the most important thing. So if I catch the opponent in a block string, a lot of my options are gone too. I can't jump out of a button if it's being blocked. If 6B is being blocked, I'm not able to jump out of it afterwards. So if they're always blocking, if I 6B, I can't jump. I'm over here trying to jump and I just got jabbed. I just got smacked in the face. Also, chat is not scrolling down for me. Okay, there we go. There are only so many things that I can do while I'm in the middle of a block string. Yes, I have access to the rest of my buttons, but a couple of my options I'm no longer allowed to. I'm rank 6. What is this? Don't worry. After this stream, you're about to be rank 5. So if they're in the middle of a block string, there are only so many things that I can do. I can ABC, but I can't go back to my A buttons. I can't go back to my quick stuff. I have to wait a moment before I go back to my quick stuff. Once I wait a moment, or once your opponent waits a moment, that gives you an opportunity to see what's going on. It allows you to catch up to the fact that, you know, they stop for a little bit. Being aware of what your opponent is doing and what your opponent has access to is the first step to not getting yourself mixed up. The second thing that, another thing that I wanted to mention for blocking these is a technique that we call fuzzy guarding. Now, I don't have the chops to try to do this on a laggy cow stream, but fuzzy blocking is the concept of timing your guard to cover both lows and overheads in really, really ambiguous situations where you just have to guess. So we're going to bring up a little bit of frame data. If you watch the frame data primer that our boy Koi did, you would know. And if you haven't, you should go and watch that. But if we went 5B, 5B has 7 frames to start up. I'm going to tell Keith to stop attacking me now because it's rude. Alright, frame data. It's time, boys. We're getting into real fighting game stuff now. So if we 5B and then we 2B. 2B starts up on frame 8. Its first frame is frame 8 because it has 7 frames to start up. But in that same situation, we could also get 6B. And boom. 23 frames to start up. It starts on frame 24. So, numbers. Oh no, none of that. That's evil. That's evil. Don't worry, I won't subject you to it for long. So, with the concept of fuzzy blocking in our pants, that was weird. I didn't mean to say that. If we've got the concept of fuzzy blocking down, we block low for about 20 frames. For the time period for all those low moves, if they're canceled into immediately, they'll always hit our block. So we'll block low for a good 24 frames. I mean, for a good 20 frames. And then on that 21st frame, we move up to block 6B. We block it for a couple of frames because it's frame 23. It starts on frame 24. And then we go back to low blocking just in case something else catches us. But it's basically timing your block to block everything that comes. I don't have too many more good examples because Arizona only has one standing overhead, but hopefully you get the point. It's switching your guard in accordance with the timing of your opponent's possible moves. Now this is going to take a little bit of extra research on your part because there are different characters with different overheads and different options that they can cancel into. I don't know how long it takes for Paprika's overhead to start, but that's something I'm going to have to search up. She only has one low, so I could block low for a little bit, and then block high for the time it takes for her overheads to come out, and then go back to blocking low. There are a little bit of holes with this. Like, as I said earlier, delayed buttons will definitely catch this. So if you're blocking low for 20 frames, and then you block high, and then you block low again once you see that the move isn't coming out. If I delayed my overhead, by the time you're back to blocking low, I'm already doing my overhead. And if you're doing fuzzy blocking because you can't react to said overhead, you've been hit. It's unfortunate, but you just got hit. You just lost the Magic Series number 3 because you got hit. It's unfortunate, but that's what I'm here to help you guys out with. So, if you don't want to block these situations, you can escape. Because certain options are going to have certain defensive tools to call them out. So if I run up to Oleander and I start smacking her block, but the first thing she wants to do is backdash out, because in this move, I mean, in this game, backdash is a ridiculously good tool. So if I went to block recovery options and boom, reversal backdash, perfect. And that's what I needed. So if I start smacking her block and I want to hit her with a 2B low because she's been blocking all of my 6Bs. It's ridiculous. So I 5A 5B, boom. She went out. She left. She fled the scene. She has left the battle. Jesus has left the room. If I 5B into 2B and I try to delay it, because I wanna catch a fuzzy guard. She's not gonna fuzzy guard. She's gonna escape that situation. Now I've whipped the button and I'm the one injured. Boom. See that? Didn't even touch her. Like I said, certain options are going to have certain things that'll be able to call them out. Now I see that she's backdashing all of my stuff, and 2B is not gonna work. It's not gonna be the option. So I'm going to need to throw out a longer, bigger button to call out that backdash. So instead of doing 5B 2B that'll be immediately backdashed out of, I'll do something bigger. I'll go higher. Boom, I 2C'd. For those of you who don't know, 2C has 12 frames of 12 active frames. Much longer than the length of invulnerability that backdash allows you, which is only 8 to 9 frames. Somebody just backdash, you can leave. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong, but it has 8 to 9 frames of invulnerability. Meanwhile, 2C has 12 frames. It's going to catch them. If you delay it, it's going to catch them. If you do it on time, it's going to catch them if they backdash, because they're going to fall into that range of vulnerability. So, we have that. But if we delay that just a little bit too much, Oleander can do... Wait, oops. Nope. Block we're going slow again, boys. So if we delay our 2C too much, thinking that they're going to backdash, we'll end up getting this instead. Once we tried to 2C, we got smacked in the face because they know that we're trying to catch that backdash. So using the correct options will get you out of certain situations. It's all a matter of knowing what your opponent's going to do, what your opponent thinks that you're going to do, and it starts this strange mental cycle. It's one that I'll get on in a little bit. So things like linear pressure can be defeated by instant blocking. Because for those of you who don't know system mechanics, instant blocking is the phenomenon that happens when you block a move 8 frames before it hits you. And it shaves off 3 of those frames of hit stun. So you can punish a lot faster. But to throw off their instant block timing, because it has to be tight, you can delay your buttons. But as I showed you, certain delayed buttons can be defeated by backdash. It starts this weird chain of things that can be defeated by certain things. And they'll only defeat them if you know what they're going to do, or if you know what they think you're going to do. Now, with all that being said, you might be thinking, how do I know what they're going to do? How do I know what they want to do? And this gets into the final but most complicated section about mix-ups. And this is the psychology of said mix-ups. Really didn't want to have to go too far into this, but it needs to be known. So, give me one moment while I start something up that you guys might appreciate. If it decides to actually launch. Okay, there we go. Starting up. I'm doing this as more of a visual, so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. Ah, there we go. It's getting started. Let's go. Alright, now 1 second while my slow computer decides to start this program. Just want to give you guys a better way of thinking about this. So I'm going to go ahead and slip on over to OBS, change the scene, and boom, it's art software. Yes, the art guy. So we're going to get in on a little bit of the brain of this topic. I also want you guys to know that you've been listening to the training theme for 42 minutes. How do you guys feel? I'm the art guy. Alright. So, one of the concepts that I want to get into is something that we call the mental stack. Now, a lot more, it'll piece itself together. I promise you. Just work with me for a little bit. So, this is what we call the mental stack. Wasn't focused on my art software. Alright, so the mental stack. Please do not get on my handwriting. I'm trying my best for you guys. So, when you're up against a new character, when you're up against a character and you're new to this game, it feels like there's so much that the opponent can do. There's so much to focus on. You're in block strength. You're in block stun, and you're just about to get hit by everything. Like there's so much stuff. When you're up against a character, they have 3 standing moves. They have 3 crouching moves. They have 3 aerial moves. They have an anti-air. They got 6 specials. They have a quarter circle. They have 3 variants of one special and 3 variants of another special. They've got a magic that you've got to learn to counter and be worried about. They've got a super. If you're up against Arizona, man, that's a problem. They've even got a grab for when you're blocking everything just like super correctly. And so I already did the math because I'm bad at math and I don't want to have to calculate this for you guys on stream. They've got 19 possible moves for you to choose from. How exactly are you going to defend against all that? So you've got this little box of things that you need to be worried about. I'm sorry, I can't draw. I'm not the art guy. I've let you all down. So you got 5A that you got to be worried about. You got the fast option. You got 2A. You got the fast low option. You know, you can get anti-aired out of grab, or if you're Arizona, you can just get anti-aired when standing. She gets it so free. If you're up against Arizona, you've got stomp to worry about. You can't exist too far away. Sometimes you might just get supered out of neutral for absolutely no reason, just because I'm stupid like that. You can get jump seed. You can get cross up. There's just so many things that you need to think of. But as you keep playing the game, as you pay more attention to your opponents, it starts to clear up. If you're in block stun, only so many things are going to open you up. You might get hit by 6B, the one high option that she can cancel out of. This is the one for the block string, so I'm just gonna write block string. But you might be able to get 6B, but you're not gonna get hit by anything else if you're blocking low. A lot of those standing options, if you're blocking low, those standing options are gone. If you're blocking low, those crouching options are gone. You can't normally get anti-aired if you're crouching. A bunch of those specials aren't going to hit you if you're blocking low. You can't get souped if you're blocking. If you get grabbed, yeah, that's definitely an option. But you can tech that. Everything has an answer. If they jump at you in the middle of a block string, which they shouldn't because their move was blocked, but if you're on defense and they jump, you can anti-air that. See, when you're looking at it from a new perspective, it looks like there's just absolutely so much to worry about. But when you actually take a moment to think of the things that they're able to do, that the game allows them to do, that their character allows them to do, there's not a lot. There are certain things that you can prioritize. You don't have to worry about getting anti-aired while blocking. It clears up so much. And then, when you have these few things to worry about, you're able to react to stuff a lot faster. Because there are only so many things you have to look for. If you think they're going to 6B, block high. If you think they're going to grab, tech that. If you think they're going to jump, you can anti-air. Or you can even hit the bigger brain solution and run under them. Once you see that there aren't so many, that there isn't a plethora of options that the opponent can choose from to mix you up, things start to become a lot more simple. You don't have to look for absolutely everything. The basic mix-ups are all that you have to be concerned about. So like, example, on Get Up. So your main priority, if you're a good boy, is blocking. The biggest concern is if my art stuff will want to work. So you've been knocked down. Even better, you've been hard knocked down. So when you get up, you're thinking, do I want to block? I'm going to block. So the only concern to you is the strike throw mix-up. Am I going to block something or am I going to have to tech something? And this becomes, strike throw. This should be the main thing you're concerned about. Nobody's going to hit you with the super on your wake up unless you're pressing a button. And even then, you deserve that. Moving on from that, if you see that they're going to strike you, then is when you move on to the, am I going to get hit with a high or a low mix-up? You see what we're getting at? You're supposed to, once you learn to prioritize certain things, not everything seems like a threat. Not everything seems like an option anymore. Not everything is going to mix you up. Another example is when an opponent, if you notice an opponent is on the ground, they have a lot of options that they can choose from. And this will always be true, because this is a ground-based game. A lot of characters are stronger on the ground. But, and your priority is going to be on a lot of things. But, the moment that your opponent jumps, a lot of those things, you don't have to worry about ground options anymore. If you're up against Arizona, and she's been catching you with stomp in the lasso mix-up all day. I'm talking to you, Koi. Yeah. He's been catching you. You're in losers finals of TMS3, and Koi's been spending all game 1 catching you with stomp in the lasso mix-ups, or stomp in the delayed stomp mix-ups. But you start blocking them, and you start reacting to them accordingly. And so Koi takes the high option, and he jumps at you. So if Koi jumps at you, the opponent jumps, you only have a couple of things to worry about. Yeah, you have to worry about, like empty jump into lowing, or empty jump into run-up throwing, or anti-air. Those are really the only feasible options that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about so much stuff. Once your opponent jumps, you notice it, and then you change that mental stack. You change that priority list. So now you can either anti-air, or you can block. It's that simple. Most of it is just knowing what to prioritize. Like I said, on Get Up, main priority is blocking the biggest mix, like the biggest concern is strike throw, and then it's high-low. If you're in the middle of a block string, you can't be thrown. So if somebody's hitting you with like the quickest block string of all time, and they're hitting you with, they're hitting you with 5B, 2B, 6A, 5B, 2B. They can't throw you while you're in block stun. This is why tick throws work. But they can't throw you while you're in that block stun. Once you know that that's no longer an option, it's not something that you have to worry about anymore. Like I said earlier, those left-right mix-ups, for the most part, there are some rare examples, but for the most part, they only exist when your opponent is jumping over you. Because those collision boxes can only slide over, or sometimes under. And remember, there are a bunch of different examples. But those situations can only happen if their collision box is allowed to go past yours. They have to jump for that to happen. If they're on the ground in front of you, they're not going to be crossing you up. That's not something that you have to worry about. Your mental stack and your priorities only have to change once they jump. So those are my examples that represent what the mental stack is. So second to last thing I want to get on is option selects. And though you may or may not have heard of this topic before, you've definitely probably seen it in action if you've been playing Hertz for a long time. An option select, by definition, is when is an input or a combination of inputs that take care of multiple actions, even though it's just one action itself. So one of the things that you'll definitely see most often is push block or teching throws. So as most people know, to push block you have to push 2 buttons, PB equals two buttons at the same time while you're in block stun. Now, to throw tech, you have to input throw when they throw you. Now, there is a little bit of an overlap here, in which sometimes those two buttons can be the buttons that you use to throw. So when you get up, if somebody hits you with something and you press your two throw buttons, because it technically is two buttons, if you press BC after you block on wake up, you'll instantly push block. But if they decide to throw you and you press BC, those are your tech buttons, so you'll also tech. BC is the combination of buttons that will either get you a push block or get you a tech, depending on what the opponent does. The input will save you no matter what they do. Now, there are also answers to this, like, being shimmied. If you're not in block stun and you press the B and C button at the same time, that doesn't input a throw tech, that doesn't input a push block, that inputs a throw. And if they're not close enough for you to throw them, you just put yourself in counter hit state. This is why you don't want to use that all the time, because it's something that higher level people will find and exploit. This is just the famous example. There are a bunch more examples that you can choose from, or that you can explore and find out. There was once an option select against Paprika's mix after she got her level 1, but I'm not going to get too into that because it doesn't work as much anymore. The last point that I really want to get in on, and that is probably the most important for defending against or performing successful mix-ups, is what I like to call Yomi. Now, seeing as this diagram is absolutely horrible, I will remake this for you guys. I am so sorry. So what we have is Yomi. Yomi is a Japanese term that roughly translates to knowing the mind of the opponent. And in fighting games, as you can guess, knowing what your opponent will or will not do is pretty important. It's the difference between getting sent to loser's bracket and making top 8. It helps. It helps a lot. If you always knew what your opponent was... Open that third eye, boy. If you always knew what your opponent was going to do, you wouldn't have problems. There are a lot of things that go into Yomi. There are a lot of things that go into this psychological aspect of fighting games. Like, depending on the character you're playing against. Knowing their strong options and knowing the things that they want to do, the player is probably, like, 9 times out of 10, Dennis recommended 9 times out of 10, going to do the thing that their character is strong at doing. If you're at a distance at which you can either be stomped or rope, the Arizona player, if they have any lick of sense, is probably going to do that stomp rope mix-up. So that's Yomi. That's knowing what your opponent wants to do. It's knowing what they're going to do. If you're me, and you've been getting a lot of traction off of 2C into 6B, you're going to do that to people. If somebody knows that I'm going to do that to them because I don't have any other sort of mix-up option and I really should not be teaching this episode, they're going to find some way to get out of that. You know, they're going to block low and high, or they're going to utilize the absolute guard that you get off of push block to block that 6B. If they know what I'm going to do, they're going to react accordingly and punish me for it. They're going to choose the correct option. If you know what they're going to do, you already know what you have to do. One of the things that you can do for this is keeping track of the things that you do. This is a little exercise that I've done in the past and that some people recommend that other new players do. Keep track of the amount of times that you do things. So I'm always going to relate back to Arizona with these points because she's my main and she's all I have, but I'll use multiple characters for this point. So keep track of the things that you're doing and keep track of the things that the opponent is doing. So if I'm Arizona and I knock down a Tianpo, And so I'm starting to get my mix ready and everything. I've got my classic Foxy special, the 2C and the 6B setup. I've got the 2C going, and in the middle of my 2C, the moment she gets back up, Tianhuo 7Ds away, and I don't hit her. And now I've eaten an air dash JC combo, and I've been knocked out of the Magic Series in 9th place again by Husky Bits for the 17th time, because I wasn't keeping track of what Tianhuo was doing. I know, as character strong skills go, I know that 7D is a strong option for Tianhuo to use, but I didn't consider that, and I got hit, and now I'm crying in quarantine. Another example is when you've knocked down Arizona, and what is she gonna do? Everybody knows what she's going to do. Don't press a button on Arizona when she's getting up. I knocked down an Arizona that has magic and meter. The signs are there. The clock is down at like 7 seconds. I've got only a little bit of health left. Arizona's only got a little bit of health left. I've knocked down the Arizona. Here it comes, boys. It's the Fox, boys. You already know what's gonna happen. I get up and I super. And because the other person didn't block, I've won. I finally won the Magic Series. I've defeated NPK. I am the supreme champion of the world. But that's always the option when it comes to Arizona. That's what the character's strength allows for. Arizona's the only character with an invulnerable... I mean, is it invincible or invulnerable on Startup Super? I forgot. But either way, I'm the only character with a super that strong. And like, that's safe on... that can't be challenged on Get Up. So it's going to happen. What fan fiction is this? You know what? I'm winning the Magic Series next week. But you guys get my point. Keep track of the things that your opponent is doing. If your opponent has blocked low every single time that they've gotten up, mix it up a little bit. Throw them. Overhead them. Left, right them. If they're doing the same thing over and over again and you see it's not working, if you keep losing rock, paper, scissors, they keep choosing rock, you keep choosing scissors, you need to mix it up a little bit. You gotta throw in a sheet of paper there. You gotta throw in some bills. You gotta throw in paper to cover up over that rock. You need to choose the option that's going to win. If the opponent is doing the thing that's going to win, you have your answer for the next time around. Now, if the opponent sees that what they're doing is no longer going to work, they're also going to change it up a little bit. And they're going to choose scissors. And if you keep choosing paper, you're going to keep getting beaten again. So that's when you start getting into the mind of the opponent. And you're thinking, alright, so he beat my paper with scissors. And so seeing as he saw that I changed it up last time, he probably thinks I'm going to change it again. He probably thinks that I'm going to switch on over to rock because he won with scissors. But no. I'm going to change over to scissors to see if we can get a draw. And this guy's over here thinking, alright. So, he chose paper, and he lost. And he's getting smarter. And he might switch on over to rock. But he might think that I'm not going to change up my strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to paper. Just because I don't know what he's going to do. And then boom, the next round comes about and he switches to scissors. And this guy switched to paper. And oh man, this guy's getting schmixed. And then they start thinking ahead for the next round. And this is what Yomi is all about. This is thinking of what the opponent is going to do. This is conscious awareness of what you've done. This is conscious awareness of what they've done, what they're thinking about you, what you're thinking about them, and using that. What's the frame data on paper? This is you thinking about what they've done, what you've done, like the circumstances of what they can do to get them to win. This is to be applied to fighting games of the same caliber. If they're getting up and they've been blocking low this whole time, and then you hit them with an overhead, and then they're like, oh man, so I can't block low anymore. What am I supposed to do? They're probably going to hit me with an overhead again. Or wait, maybe they want me to think they're going to hit me with an overhead again. This sort of convoluted thinking is what fighting games are all about when it comes to mix-ups. So, last thing I wanted to bring up was it's a lot more complex than rock, paper, scissors would lead you to believe. There are a lot more things that you have to consider. There are a lot more defensive options that someone can take. They can block. They can reverse it. They can DP. They can super. They can rock, paper, scissors, DP. That's what it is. They can backdash. They can, if you're playing against a palm, they can command dash through stuff. If you're playing against a path, oops. If you're playing up against a path, I accidentally wrote Lincoln Hammett, God. If you're playing up against a path, they could teleport. It's knowing the options that your opponent has available to them, knowing the options that you have available to yourself, and thinking, what are they going to do? What do they think I'm going to do? One good way to see what they think, maybe go through all the reversal options. You know what? I could do that. We're coming up on a little over an hour, but just to get you guys started, there are 6 characters in TFH. Well, hold on. I will go over that after I finish up the important point that I need to go over. So, you got so many options to choose from as a defender. They've got so many options that they can choose from as the attacker. And of course, with the mental stack, you've narrowed those options down to only the important ones, only the relevant ones. And after a while, you're going to start doing options. And you're going to want to count how many times you do a certain option in relevance to other options. If you're starting to get stale because all you do is wake up soup, count how many times you wake up soup. If you wake up soup 7 times in one round, first off, you need to consider how you're getting so much meter. But second off, you're going to want to mix it up. If you're not blocking, if you're not backdashing, and all you're doing is wake up soup the moment you get the chance, a good opponent is going to see that. Count how many times you're doing it. If you go back and you count that you didn't do backdash a single time, you might want to start mixing that into your defensive arsenal. The same thing goes for if you're on the offensive. If you're on the offensive, this is the defensive stuff. If you're on the offensive, these notes are not going to make a lick of sense. If you're on the offensive and you have the plethora of mix-ups that I explained earlier, you can, if they wake up, you can hit them with a high, you can hit them with a low, you can grab them, you can hit them with an unblockable, you can empty jump throw them, or you can empty jump low them. You have too many options available to you to start doing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, don't get me wrong. If your opponent is getting hit by just the same low over and over and over again, don't change. If it works, don't change it. If it doesn't work, that's when you need to start mixing it up. Your mix-ups are failing and you're getting stale if the stuff doesn't work after the 3rd time you've tried it. Sometimes, you know, they could get lucky. They could block 6B out of nowhere, like how MPK's stupid face did earlier on in the stream. They could block it. You know, that happens. If you try it again and they block it, you might want to consider switching to something else. If you try it for the 3rd time and they block it, first off, you're probably dead because Keith's damage output is insane. But then you really need to switch to something else because your overhead isn't working. Your 6B isn't working. So you want to throw in that low. You want to throw in that command grab. If you count you've done 6B 3 times and you've done low 0, consider mixing that in. The more options you have to choose from, the deadlier your mix-ups are going to be. So, as per Mr. Reed's request, I will go over... The last thing I will go over is the character's reversal options, just for you to be aware of what you can get smacked by on the opponent's wake-up. And some of the options that are available to you if you are a character that is in a block stun situation or a situation where you can get mixed up. Okazeme, block stun, resets, anything. So, system-wide, the game will give you, you can block. You can backdash. Backdash is technically a reversal option if you do it the first frame that you're available. And it will give you 8 or 9 frames of invuln. That's why you see so many higher level players do that. You got cross canner. If you're blocking, you can CC out of situations. Yes, cross canner works. I want to see if there's anything else. You don't see it often, but instant blocking certain moves will make them punishable to the point where you can break out of situations. Doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. Now, moving down the character list, we have Arizona, who basically just has everything as a reversal for absolutely no reason. But in a non-meaty sense, you have Magic Headbutt, you have Deadbutt, you have Magic HP, you have Magic Headbutt to choose from to get yourself out of those bad situations. Remember, some of these things do have counters. You have the counter. And, of course, you have Soup. You have your Soup. As Velvet. As Velvet, you have your DP input. You have your 623D. And if you have magic, hey, you're invulnerable for a little bit and you can break them off of you. I don't think she has too much of anything else. Really trying to think, but I don't think that she has a lot. Most of the stuff that Velvet has to escape these situations are just really good use of the things that the game provides you. If you look at somebody like 5x5 or somebody like K9, if you look at one of the good Velvets play, you'll see them blocking a lot of stuff. And you'll see them with really good spaced out backdashes, because aside from the magic DP that Velvet has, she doesn't have a lot. So all she has to fall back on are these. If you're up against a PAP, they have things like, Teleport C. Nothing that you do will hit them on the first frame when they teleport out into hitting you from above. So Tele C is an option. Super is an option. It's not as strong as Arizona's, but it is invulnerable on startup until she reappears back on the screen. I'm starting to forget characters in this game now, but if I'm forgetting anything, Magic Eruption, that's what it's called for Velvet. So, hold up, I'm starting to forget the characters. There's Tian, there's Oli, and there's Palm. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. So for Tianpo, certain things that you can do to get out of these situations are, you have 7D. You got the famous. You got the classic, the Husky Bits classic. 7D to flip out of situations. There are counters to everything that you've seen here. For 7D, you can just jump up and grab it. Call it out. Hi, Arcanel. I'm coming up there. Anything else that Tianpo has? She has Wake Up Ash. As stupid as it seems, she can ash out of some situations. Other than that, there's not much else that Tianpo has in terms of reversals. But these two options are pretty darn strong. For Oleander, Oleander is also another character that doesn't have a lot. But the one thing that she does have is pretty darn strong. She has that magic teleport, that disappear into pillar. It is invulnerable all the way up until a few frames after she reappears on the screen. And it's this massive pillar that launches you up. It hurts. It hurts, but it's very strong. And for Palm is another character that doesn't have too much in terms of defensive options. Very, very much so like Velvet. So when you're playing up against people like Hammett or playing up against people like Oscar or Citric Acid, you're going to see them blocking a lot. But a few of the things that Palm does have available to her are command dashes out of those situations. You know, that hold back, flick forward, A and B. The one where she scampers forward and flops on her face. It's strike invulnerable on startup, meaning that you cannot hit her. If I remember correctly, it's strike invulnerable on startup. You might be able to throw it, but for the most part, you can't hit her. So Palm has her command dash. These are the options that are given to you to get out of those bad mix-up situations. The option that you pick is up to you. The option that needs to be picked is very, very dependent on the situation and what your opponent is going to do. Knowing what your opponent is going to do with that Yomi that I displayed earlier will allow you to know which option that you have to pick. This is the collection of notes. I'm so sorry for everyone who had to watch this. But that is mostly it on my lesson of mix-ups. If there are any questions, please ask them in the Twitch chat, like now, before I cut off the stream. I really do hope that there was something that could be learned from all of this. Other than that, there's not too much more I have to say. Happy schmixing, happy blocking schmix. Hopefully now, since you understand it a little bit more, if I did my job correctly, you will understand that there's a little bit that you have to. The breakdown of the mental stack was helpful. Thank you so much. That was either Five or Koi's idea, but hopefully, could you give me the notes afterwards? Sure, if you can read this. But now that you understand that, freak, I lost my train of thought at the very, very end. This always happens. But hopefully now you get it. Mix-ups are very dependent on the option that the opponent picks, very dependent on the option that you pick. Be mindful of what you're doing. Be mindful of what the opponent wants to do and what they've been doing. Don't do the same thing over and over again unless it just works. If it doesn't, switch it up. Know certain answers to certain things. This is the thing that catches a lot of new players off their guard, because they'll see something strong and then they'll immediately just go in on it. Just like, oh man, that's so strong, that's so stupid. But likely one of these options is going to work to get you out of the situation. Depending on the character that you're playing, if you're Arizona, one of these options is likely to work. Blocking is likely to work. You might have to see which way you need to block, but it will probably work. Backdash could work, depending on the situation, depending on the button. Cross canter could be your only solution to get out of those situations. Sometimes if you don't have the meter, you just have to hold that. But finding the mix-up and looking to see what the correct option is the best way to getting out of that mix-up situation, because you know it. If you know what the opponent's going to do, they don't know that you have an answer for that. Boom, you slap them in the face with the answer, and then they have to come up with a more elaborate mix-up or something that will beat the option that you just displayed if they think that you're going to do it again. That's the depth of fighting games. It's learning in progression. So I hope you guys have had a good time with this episode. I had a good time, aside from, the frame drops in my game, TFH. But that is going to be the end of it. I'm going to be wrapping up the stream. Just a couple of announcements. Next week is, of course, our tournament that we have been preparing you guys for. The Magic Series number 3. The challenge link is in the announcements channel of the Fightin Fanatics. If you're not already in the Discord, please go on and join if you want. I really don't think I have that much more to say. I hope we see a lot of you guys next week. We had a player cap. We upped the player cap to 64, so don't think that you can't join. We've got plenty of room. We've got plenty of space for all of you, especially after the success of our last tournament. Hopefully we get to see a bunch of you guys out there. Hopefully this lesson does you some good in the tournament and most of your games in the future. This has been Foxy with Mixups. Tie your shoes, wash your hands, stay home, and I hope everything else goes well for you. Until next time, have yourselves a darn good one.